What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be taking a look at the entry list for the 2024 Advent Health 400 at Kansas Speedway. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start and talk about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This course will be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain's coming off having a little bit of a disappointing run for his standards at Dover, finishing outside of the top 10. But Chastain has been decent at Kansas in the past. And I think that Ross Chastain has a decent chance and opportunity to have a good run this week. And while the mile and a half have not been as strong for Trackhouse this season, I do think that Ross Chastain has a really good chance and opportunity to maybe get back on track. And I think he has a chance to get a top 10 this weekend at Kansas. Up next, how about the 2 car for Team Penske? This one's going to be driven by Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric has kind of struggled in 2024 despite being inside the top 20 in the standings. Cindric has been okay at Kansas in the past. I think in 2022, he had a chance to finish inside the top 10 in both races. While Ford has struggled for the most part this year, I do think Cindric could turn the season around. While Penske struggled in the mile halves as well, I could see Austin Cindric having a decent run this weekend at Kansas. Up next, how about the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing? This one's going to be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon has struggled immensely in 2024. He currently sits 31st in the standings and needs to have a turnaround run. Lucky for him, RCR had a great run with Kyle Busch, so maybe this could be the turnaround point for Austin Dillon. But Austin Dillon historically has not been that great at Kansas. I don't expect him to be a major threat and contender for the win this weekend at Kansas. Up next, how about the 4 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This one's to be driven by Josh Berry. Josh Berry's had a decent start to 2024 while he sits outside of the top 20 in the points. Josh Berry's coming off having a top 15 run at Dover. I think Josh Berry's going to be okay. I don't think he's going to be absolutely amazing because he's not been amazing on the mile and a half so far in the times he's ran here. I'm not expecting him to set the world on fire. I think he likely finishes outside the top 20 this weekend at Kansas. Up next, how about the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This one's going to be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's had a really strong year in 2024, as Kyle Larson is sitting as the points leader and has still the most stage wins in 2024. And Kyle Larson historically has been amazing at Kansas Speedway, but has not won here since 2021. But I think Kyle Larson is one of the favorites going into the weekend. I think he's going to have a really strong chance and a great opportunity to get a second win in 2024, which his only other win came at a mile and a half, that being at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 6 car for RFK Racing? This one's going to be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski struggled immensely at Dover. But luckily for Brad, he's been pretty solid at Kansas Speedway in the past. Had one of the strongest cars at the end of the race last year. And I do think that Brad Keselowski will have a decent performance and a decent car this weekend. If we can get it back on track with another strong run, I think he does have a chance and an opportunity to do that this weekend at Kansas Motor Speedway. Up next, how about the 7 car for Spire Motorsports? This one's going to be driven by Corey LaJoie. Corey LaJoie is coming off finishing 21st last weekend at Dover, which is not bad for his standards, but he hasn't been amazing at Kansas in the past. In fact, Spire has historically not been great at this racetrack, but maybe Corey LaJoie could turn his luck around. We'll see what he does this weekend. We'll see if he can have a good run this weekend with the 7 team at Kansas Speedway. Up next, how about the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing? This one's going to be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is coming off having a fantastic run at Dover for his standards, finishing inside the top 5. And I think Kyle Busch's fortunes can turn in a favor. The last time he ran in Kansas, he finished, I believe, inside the top 5 as well. And I think that Kyle Busch has been pretty solid on the mile and a half this year. I think Kyle Busch is going to have a good chance and opportunity to at least get a top 10 for sure, but it wouldn't surprise or shock me if he does, in fact, end up getting a top 5 this weekend at Kansas Speedway with the 8 team. Up next, how about the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This one's going to be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott's had a really strong start to 2024 as he currently sits 3rd in the standings. And the last time he ran a mile and a half, guess what? He won. He has won a Kansas 4 back in 2018, but he hasn't been as strong in recent years at this track. But I do think that Chase Elliott will lead some laps this week, and I think he does have a chance and an opportunity to win because Hendrick and Gibbs has dominated this season so far. Up next, how about the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This one's going to be driven by Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson has been extremely impressive so far in 2024, as he currently sits 21st in the standings and has 4 top 10s. Noah Gragson, I think, has got a good chance to run well. The last really traditional mile and a half, that being in Las Vegas, he had one of the best cars on the long run. And he was pretty good here before he had the fight with Ross Chastain. So I could see Noah Gragson having a good run this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, how about the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This one's going to be driven by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin's coming off picking up his third win of 2024 last weekend at Dover, and he'll be looking to get a second straight victory. Denny Hamlin also is the defending winner of the spring race at Kansas for 2023. I think Denny Hamlin is one of the favorites to currently win the championship at the moment, and it would not surprise or shock me if Denny Hamlin's able to pick up his fourth win and his second win in a row this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, how about the 12th car for Team Penske? This one once again be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney's been the strongest Ford driver so far in 2024, as he currently sits 7th in the standings. Historically, though, Ryan Blaney has not been amazing at this racetrack. And with the struggles Team Penske's had for the most part this year, I don't expect Ryan Blaney to set the world on fire here at Kansas, unfortunately. I think he's going to struggle quite a bit, and sadly, I think Ryan Blaney, for his standards, will likely finish outside the top 10 this weekend in the 12th car at Kansas Speedway. Up next, how about the 14 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This one once again be driven by Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe's had a pretty solid year for his standards in 2024, as he currently sits 12th in the point standings. But the last couple of times we've ran here at Kansas, he hasn't had the finishes that he really has been looking for. And SHR has kind of struggled in Kansas in recent years, in recent seasons. I'm not expecting Chase Briscoe to set the world on fire, and I don't think he will have a fantastic run. He could prove me wrong, but I'm not expecting much from him this weekend at Kansas. Up next, how about the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing? This one, once again, or I think for the first or second time this year, will be driven by Riley Herbst, who will make his second start of 2024. As Riley Herbst was at one point last year rumored to drive this car full-time, I believe, before he signed that contract extension with Stewart-Haas Racing. First intermediate start for him in his Cup Series career. We'll see where Riley Herbst gets done. There could be other drivers who get a chance at opportunity at some point. Maybe Haley Deegan or Cole Custer drives this ride at some point. Nonetheless, so great opportunity for Riley Herbst to drive the 15 car this weekend. Up next, how about the 16 car for Kaulig Racing? This will once again be driven by Derek Kraus, who will make his third Cup start, I believe, of 2024. Derek Kraus is among the many drivers who've driven this car. AJ Allmendinger, Shane Van Gisbergen, and others have gotten behind the wheel of this seat. I don't think Derek Kraus is going to do that great. I know Allmendinger had a good run last week at Dover, but I'm not expecting the 16 car to be strong this weekend at Kansas, unfortunately. Up next, how about the 17 car for RFK Racing? This one once again be driven by Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher is currently sitting as the last driver currently in the playoffs. And historically for Chris Buescher, unfortunately, he's not been great at Kansas. I don't expect Chris Buescher to be a major threat at Contender. In fact, I think the Fords are going to be struggling all weekend long. I think Chris Buescher will sadly struggle more than likely this weekend and not have a good run with the 17 team at Kansas. Up next, how about the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This one once again be driven by Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. has had a lot of great runs at Kansas. In fact, in the spring race last year, he was one of the strongest cars. I think he would be a really strong pick for the weekend. He's currently sitting second in the standings, and I could see Martin Truex Jr. finally getting his first win of 2024 this weekend. We'll see what the 19 team can do this weekend at Kansas Speedway as Martin Truex Jr. looks to end a long winless streak that goes all the way back, I believe, to New Hampshire last season. Up next, how about the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell is looking for some redemption this weekend. He has had three or four straight finishes outside of the top 10. And the last three have been outside the top 30. He's looking for redemption, currently sits 17th in the points. Luckily for him, the JGR cars have been extremely strong and really, really fast. I could see Christopher Bell having a really solid and a really great run, but he needs the luck to turn around this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, how about the 21 car for the Wood Brothers? This will once again be driven by Harrison Burton. It seems like Harrison Burton might be improving just a little bit, but not much. He's coming off having two straight finishes inside the top 30 and is looking to turn the corner around. They've just announced John Wood as a new president of the team, so maybe that could turn the luck for Harrison Burton going forward. But Harrison Burton is also still on the hot seat currently at the moment. We'll see what Harrison Burton can do this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, top of the 22 car for Team Penske. This will once again be driven by Joey Logano. Joey Logano has struggled a lot this year in 2024, and I don't really think Joey Logano is going to be that fast, unfortunately, this weekend. Like I said, with Team Penske, they have not been really quick and fast this weekend, and I do expect that the Team Penske cars, for the most part, aren't going to run that great, unfortunately. So I expect Logano to struggle a bit, and I think he finishes more than likely outside of the top 15 this weekend at Kansas Speedway with the 22 organization. Up next, top of the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Bubba Wallace. The last 2 weeks for Bubba have not gone so well, as he's been involved in crashes that have not been his fault. Luckily for Bubba Wallace, we're going to one of his best racetracks. He's been really strong the last few times, and he won at Kansas back in the fall of 2022. I think he's one of the favorites going into the weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised or shocked of how strong 2311 Racing has been. I think Bubba Wallace has a good chance and opportunity to get his 3rd career Cup victory this weekend at Kansas Speedway and a 2nd Cup win at Kansas. Up next, top of the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by William Byron. William Byron has been very inconsistent at times so far in 2024. Well, he's had 3 wins. He's also only had 4 or 5 top 10s. Actually still has, I think, tied for the most top 10s, but hasn't scored a stage win so far this year. I think that William Byron could have a good run, but we'll have to see how he performs. Nonetheless, he'll once again be in the 24 car this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, top of the 31 car for Colleague Racing. This will once again be driven by Daniel Hemrick. Daniel Hemrick's coming off having a really solid run. In fact, I think that he had 2 straight races now where he's finished inside the top 10 and has moved up to 25th in the standings. Even though Colleague Racing's future might be a little uncertain currently at the moment, I think Daniel Hemrick's turning the corner. We'll see what he can do this weekend, and we'll see if he can have a good run with Colleague Racing this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, top of the 33 car for Richard Childress Racing. This will once again be driven by Austin Hill and make a 2nd of 4 scheduled Cup starts in 2024. Austin Hill, the last time he ran, finished last after having some sort of power steering failure near the end of the event. Austin Hill is a very solid Xfinity driver, is currently up front of the points, and has 2 wins so far this season in Xfinity. He's looking to have a good run this weekend at Kansas. We'll see how he ends up doing. It's a great opportunity for him. Hopefully he can have a good run this weekend with the 33 team at Kansas Speedway. Up next, top of the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell has struggled over the course of the last 5 or 6 races. His best finish is 21st and has dropped all the way down to 29th in the standings. He needs a turnaround run really, really quickly. Well, he had a chance to win at Talladega. The finishes have really not been there recently. I think McDowell could turn the season around sooner rather than later because there's some good tracks coming up. We'll see if Michael McDowell can do that this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, top of the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Todd Gillen. Todd Gillen's had a decent year, and honestly, 2024 has been better than 2023. But I believe he's only had 1 or 2 top 10 finishes so far this year. He's looking for a good run this weekend. Front Row's had some speed this year, but they haven't had the finishes to show for. We'll see what Todd Gillen can do with the 38 team this weekend at Kansas. Up next, top of the 41 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. This will once again be driven by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece needs some luck right now. He fell out of the race early and finished last after the rocker panel looked like it caught fire, and Ryan Preece is very frustrated about it. He'll be looking to have a good run this weekend at Kansas. We'll see how he ends up doing. He hasn't been amazing here in the Cup Series, but in the Truck Series, he's had some good runs, so maybe he can use that luck to have a good run this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, top of the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. Now, John Hunter Nemechek has won here, I think, once or twice in the Truck Series. But in the Cup Series, he's been very inconsistent. But I do think that John Hunter could have a turnaround weekend. I think he finished here in the top 20 this past weekend at Dover. And I think that Legacy Motor Club could run well because the Toyotas have been very solid on the mile and a half this year. We'll see what John Hunter Nemechek can do, and we'll see if he can have a solid and good run this weekend at Kansas Speedway with the 42 organization. Up next, top of the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club. Currently at the moment, Eric Jones is listed as the driver. but I don't think Eric Jones is going to be cleared to run. So more than likely, Corey Heim is going to be the driver because Corey Heim is the reserve driver currently for Legacy Motor Club. If not, I can see maybe somehow Matt Kenseth coming out of retirement because Matt Kenseth was interested at one point. Maybe we could see someone else from the Toyota camp like a Sheldon Creed or Eric Roll come back, but more than likely it is going to be Corey Heim who will drive this car this weekend at Kansas. Up next, top of the 45 car for 2311 Racing. This one once going to be driven by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick won the last time we were here at Kansas Speedway in the fall of 2023. And Tyler Reddick historically and 2311, like I mentioned, Bubba Wallace, have been historically amazing at this racetrack. I think Tyler Reddick could be in for a very solid run this weekend as he'll be looking to get a second win in the last 3 weeks and be looking to pick up his 7th career Cup Series victory this weekend at Kansas Speedway. And it will be, I think, his 4th win with 2311 Racing so far at this point. Up next, top of the 47 car for JTG Doherty Racing. This one once going to be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has had a pretty decent year so far, but not amazing year. He's had a lot of bad luck and a lot of bad mistakes, and obviously we don't know the future of JTG Doherty Racing currently at the moment. Nonetheless, Stenhouse will be looking to have a decent run. We'll see what Ricky Stenhouse Jr. can do with JTG Doherty Racing this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, top of the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one once going to be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman is continuing to run very, very impressively in 2024. He's currently sitting inside the top 10 in the standings. He's had a lot of top 10s and a lot of top 5s so far this year. Even though he's probably been the weakest Hendrick driver, to be the weakest driver, Hendrick still be in the top 10, that is a really good thing. And Alex Bowman has been pretty solid at Kansas in the past. We'll see what he can do with the 48 team this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Up next, top of the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing. This will once again be driven by Justin Haley. Justin Haley's had a decent year so far in 2024 with a couple of top 20 finishes. But Rick Ware Racing's been not as amazing on the mile and a half so far this year. Maybe we see him start turning a corner, have a good run. We'll see how he ends up doing. It's a great opportunity, though, for Justin Haley. We'll see what he ends up doing this weekend and see if he can have a good run this weekend at Kansas with Rick Ware Racing. Up next, top of the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs, I think, scored a 6th or 7th top 10 finish so far of 2024 this past weekend at Dover. It seems like they're finally starting to turn a corner after a lot of very major inconsistencies very recently. I think Ty Gibbs has a decent chance for a really strong run, considering JGR has been pretty strong so far throughout 2024. We'll see how he ends up doing, and we'll see if he can have a solid and a great run this weekend at Kansas Speedway with Joe Gibbs Racing. Up next, top of the 71 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Zane Smith. Zane Smith has struggled for the most part so far in 2024. While he's had some very solid and good finishes near the middle portion of the field, he's also had a lot of incidents and a lot of wrecks. He will have some experience going into weekend as he is going to run the Truck Series race, looking to win the race at Kansas. We'll see what Zane Smith can do, and we'll see if he can start turning the corner this weekend at Kansas with Spire Motorsports, because he's won here in the Truck Series in the past. Up next, how about a 77 car for Spire Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar is currently sitting in the top 20 in the standings, and he's been very impressive throughout 2024 as a rookie. I think Carson Hocevar has a chance to make the playoffs if he can get a win because the speed has been there at times, and they've had top 10 and top 15 speed on a pretty consistent basis. We'll see what Carson Hocevar can do as he looks to get his first Cup win of 2024, but he has won here previously in the Truck Series, that going back to last year. I think almost had a chance to win here last year. Up next up at the 84 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson make his 3rd of 9 scheduled starts currently at the moment for 2024, but that could change in the future if he does drive the 43 car, which could lead to maybe some opportunities for other drivers in the Toyota camp. Maybe they get Carl Edwards out of retirement at some point, who knows. But it would be cool to see someone like that come out of retirement to drive. But Jimmy Johnson will drive the 84 this weekend. We'll see what he can do and if he can improve from what happened at Dover this past weekend. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez has been very inconsistent and has not had a lot of great runs outside of winning and having another top 5 a couple weekends ago. We'll see what he can do this weekend at this upcoming race at Kansas. He's had some speed at times. The track has some speed at times, but I'm not sure if they're going to run well this weekend at Kansas Speedway. We'll see what the number 99 team can do this weekend. So, that is the interest for the 2024 Avon 400 at Kansas. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support on Patreon as well. And let's go more of that and comment your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about the interest for the Avon 400? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, we're going to have the NASCAR news video discussing news over the course of the last couple days, and we're also going to have the Truck Series race picks later in the day. Then on Thursday, I'll probably have race picks for the NASCAR Cup Series race at Kansas Speedway, and I also will have the Penske video most likely dropping as well. Then Friday, I'm going to have a NASCAR news video dropping, and then Saturday and Sunday, I'll have some content dropping as well. I've got a silly season update more than likely dropping this week that you will see, and if the race does get rained out with the weather being an issue, you might see some sort of Stuart Haas race video potentially dropping, or a video on teams that could downsize. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.